Hey guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with a mix of Neighbors from Hell and revenge stories. In today's titled story, OP's neighbor cuts down OP's hedge without permission, and OP then sues him for over $100,000. Without wasting any more time, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, Neighbor cut down my hedge without permission, I make him pay $100,000. There is not much backstory needed for this story, so I will cover what I think is important. Now, while some people have fences or scrubs creating barriers between houses, me and my neighbor's property are divided by a line of beautiful red oak trees. All of these trees are on my side of the property line though, and it is my job to maintain them. I do a good job with that and make sure the trees are healthy and any dead branches are removed. Me and my neighbor don't talk much and I don't see any issues about it. He never even mentioned the trees before I ended up going on vacation for a couple of days and coming back to a complete disaster. Yep, the entire row of trees is gone, stumps and all. I loved those trees and was completely devastated. My family had owned this property for generations and were the ones that planted those trees to begin with. Usually I would wait to calm down, but I had no desire to do that and instead went straight to my neighbor to see what the hell had happened. Me? Why are all of my trees gone? Neighbor, don't be walking onto my property and start screaming at me. Me? I leave for 3 days and come back to find all the red oaks that my family planted completely destroyed. Neighbor, those things were a total eyesore. I was not getting enough sun on that side of my yard. That doesn't mean you have the right to just cut them down. They are on the property line, so they belong to both of us, and I had them removed. No, those were on my property, I exclaimed. Neighbor, well, they are gone now, and there isn't anything you can do about it. It cost quite a pretty penny too, and I slipped an invoice into your mail for what you owe me. Why would I owe you anything? I asked. Neighbor, to pay your half for the trees being taken down. He had no remorse for what he had done and now expected me to actually share in the cost. I got home and looked for that letter so I could see what company came and destroyed my property without my consent. I called them and after yelling at several people, finally got in touch with someone who knew what was going on. He said that the man claimed they were on his property and had no idea the trees belonged to me. He offered to pay for landscaping to cover up the horrible dirt patches where the trees once stood, but I declined and hung up. Looking back, I know that I could have probably sued them too for not making sure it was the man's property. I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt though, as they were not the ones I was truly mad at. I knew that I needed to get in touch with quite a few people until my revenge could be fully realized, so I first sent a request for someone to come and see where the property line was. Like I thought, it was a good 5 feet away from where the trees had been planted and clearly on my property. Then I called in a tree adjuster, I guess also called surveyor, to see the cost of what those trees were worth. He was expensive to get out there, but at this point my revenge did not have a price tag on it. He told me from pictures and documents that I had that they were not red oaks, but scarlet oaks. I don't really know the difference, but I thought I would just mention that fun fact. I thought that I would get a couple grand out of my neighbor, so I could pay to have trees replanted, but it turns out though that the specific trees I had were part of a rare breed of scarlet oaks. Taking their age into account, he said that the trees combined were worth roughly $80,000. To say I was shocked was an understatement and asked if he could put that in official writing. I explained the situation and he was more than willing to make an official document for me. Now that all the pieces were together, I started my revenge in the form of a giant lawsuit. I knew that he had no defense and that I was going to absolutely destroy him. I was suing him for the cost of the trees, the cost to plant new trees, the cost for the tree adjuster, and for my lawyer fees. It would be going to be an absolute bloodbath and I couldn't wait. I showed up to court with all of my documents and presented my whole case in front of the judge. Then it was his turn to try and weasel his way out of it. Neighbor, They were made as the border between the two properties, so the actual property line doesn't matter. Judge, that property line is legally where the border is. It doesn't matter where the trees were planted. Neighbor, Your Honor, there's no way that those trees were worth 80k. It is clear that he's making up numbers to try and sue me for more than it was worth. Judge, I see that the document in front of me is from a legitimate source. The court finds the $80,000 price valid. Is there anything in your defense that shows a reasonable cause for you to destroy your neighbor's property? Neighbor, they were a complete eyesore and kept all the sun out of my yard. Judge, I've heard quite enough. I am granting OP $100,000 to cover all his costs. You are lucky that you are not getting any jail time or fines for trespassing. My neighbor was stunned when she dropped the figure on him because we both knew that he didn't have that kind of money. He was going to need to sell his assets and maybe even his house to pay me back. He came running to me several times begging to pretend that he paid me so we could both get on with our lives. I told him no dice and I wanted all of the money that he owed me. Watching him go through misery just like I had made me feel so much better about the whole thing. Even though I planted new trees, they will take a long time to get to the majestic beauty the old ones were. So even though I ended up with my revenge, I still have to see outside every day a reminder of what he did. Things went on for months in confusion of what was going to happen until a deal was finally reached. The town was going to split his large property into two halves. The first he would have to sell off and the second half was going to go to me as part of the money I was owed. Now at least the property line is so far away from the trees that I don't have to worry about anyone thinking it is the border. The only thing I still have to do is figure out what I am going to use my newfound land extension for. If anyone has any suggestions, feel free to let me know in the comments. Once the trees grow in that area, it will be nice and shady. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would say this is one of the perfect tree law revenge stories, and it just shows us that you should never mess with a man or a woman's tree. It can literally ruin your life. Either way, if you enjoy the stories about HOAs, crazy neighbors and trees, then please don't forget to like the video if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much for your daily support. I am very grateful and I truly appreciate what you do. Thank you so much. And the next one is a little bonus revenge story and it is titled Cause Drama and Try to Ruin My Reputation Over Facebook. Now everyone knows your secret. This is going to be long, but I've been dying to tell this story. It is about how I put a narcissistic woman in her place after being accused of stealing on Facebook. A few years ago, I was involved in one of those swap and sell groups on Facebook. It was specifically for stay-at-home moms and mostly centered around trading and selling clothing, toys, etc. It was an awesome resource because you could get things for your children at a very low price and often make new friends in the process. There was one woman, however, that made the swap and sell group an unpleasant place. We will call her Kathy or Kathy, I'm not sure. In person, all she ever talked about was herself, specifically about how great she was, and she did the same for her kids. She would also slip little hints in about how you or your children were inferior in some way. For example, she would say things like, "Oh, your child's soccer team came in 3rd place last season? My son's team came 1st, but that's not very surprising considering how good he is. I must have done a great job raising him, and it's a shame that others cannot do the same with their children." She really would say things like that. In hindsight, she was a narcissist. I'm not just saying that. I am pretty sure she could be diagnosed. I just did the best I could to avoid her if I saw her in the next aisle of a store. One day though, she saw me with my infant son. He was crying, so she came over and said, "Oh, let me hold him. I can get him to calm down." It was infuriating. Almost everyone hated her. But Kathy really took it to the next level when it came to the swap and sell. She would be the first in line to buy something, only to demand a lower price upon inspection. "These clothes look dirtier than what I saw in the picture. I will only pay half." She did this crap all the time, and if the seller didn't oblige, she posted a rant about how they screwed her over, never do business with them, yada yada yada. This sort of talk was technically against the rules of the swap and sell group, but Kathy was friends with the administrator, so nothing was ever done. The administrator was lazy anyway and rarely interacted with the group. Furthermore, Kathy had a few cronies that would send PMs to everyone in the group, bad-mouthing sellers who didn't accept Kathy's half-price crap. It was borderline blackmail. I always felt some anxiety when I posted something for sale because I was afraid Kathy would claim it first and then pull her scam, which she did several times. She had Facebook hooked up to her phone, and since she sat at home and did nothing all day, she was fast to jump on items for sale. Oftentimes she would buy something and then it would appear for sale months later at a jacked up price. What made this all the more frustrating was the fact that she was a pastor's wife and had a good standing in the community. Nobody knew what a horrible person she was, and even though she was a toxic and selfish person who only cared about herself. I put up with this woman for 3 years and then one day I had enough. I listed a toy for sale. It needed 2 AA batteries to work. Knowing this, I purchased a new pack of batteries and put them in the toy. I tested it, it worked. I said that batteries were included in my listing, everything seemed to be in order, and within 2 minutes Kathy jumped in and said she wanted it. She obviously saw it pop up on her phone while she was lounging around at home. The rules said I had to offer it because it was first come first serve and I could not skip over buyers. So, with a heavy heart, I set up a time to bring it to Kathy's house. She refused to meet me halfway or come to my home as was her custom, so I dropped off the toy when I was in town running errands the next day. Kathy didn't try to pull the usual "it looks dirtier than the picture" scam, so that was nice. She asked if the batteries were included and I said yes. I received payment and went about my day. Kathy was playing fair. About damn time. However, when I got home, I had 20+ notifications on Facebook. Kathy had tagged me in a post. Oh, this couldn't be good. In her post, she claimed that there were no batteries. She posted a picture of the empty battery slots and shamed me for shady sales tactics, gave a little sob story about her chubby 13-year-old soccer star was upset that he couldn't play with it, and demanded her money back. On top of this crap storm, one of my friends PM'd me saying that people were receiving messages from Kathy's cronies about how selfish and shady I was. That evil woman. I had never ever been more pissed and hurt in my life. I was done putting up with this woman's crap. I responded with a rather lengthy message calling her out on her scams in the past. I said she was a liar for removing the batteries and that she should be ashamed of herself for behaving in such a manner when she was a pastor's wife. Many people liked my comment and I knew that the crap was about to hit the fan, but I didn't care anymore. When I logged into Facebook the next day, I had a ton of notifications and messages. My stomach dropped. I skimmed through the messages first. Some were positive and thanking me for calling Kathy out. Some, however, were negative, from Kathy's cronies about what a rude person I was to say those things about her. As for the notifications, most of them stemmed from a single post that had been stickied by the administrator in the swap and sell group. Apparently she overcame her laziness just long enough to publicly humiliate me. The post said that thieves, yes, thieves, were not tolerated in the group and then went on to mention me by name. This was no small thing, as there were many women involved in this group and we were in a small Midwestern town where word traveled fast. My reputation as a mother was being attacked, and the post went on to say that rather than banning me, I had the opportunity to apologize and refund the money I owed. The first comment to the post was from Kathy. She said something that no doubt she had been dying to say for a long time. It went something like this. "OP, you have stolen money from me and tried to blame your past actions on me as well. And yet in the face of your accusations, I have been patient and kind. This peace comes from the Lord. If you would only accept him as your savior, you would feel the same peace. If nothing else, this whole situation just proves that I'm better than you." Over 20 people liked the comment. Oh my god, this had to stop. Kathy the narcissist was turning the tables and accusing me of actions which were actually hers, an actual case of projection. The time for vengeance had come. Now onto the revenge. This requires a bit of explaining. You see, Kathy had a secret, one that I stumbled upon by accident several years prior while reading the local newspaper while doing errands in the next town over. In one small corner regarding court happenings, there was a column about a man who had killed his friend while high on bath salts. And damn guys, I gotta say, I haven't heard about those in quite a while. Anyway, I don't remember the exact details of the crime, nor did I know what the nature of the court proceedings were, but thanks to the column I did know that this man had been found mentally unfit to stand trial and sent to the state mental hospital, and I did know the names of his parents who were present at the hearing. The parents, strangely enough, had the exact same names as Kathy and her husband. I did some googling and discovered that this man was Kathy's oldest son. Kathy never mentioned having another son for obvious reasons. This crime happened when Kathy and her family were living in this other town. Soon after her son was sent to the mental ward, Kathy and her husband moved away to my town. I knew that she had lived elsewhere before joining the swap and sell, but I didn't know that she had moved to distance herself and her husband from their dark secret. This was my short and sweet response to Kathy's comment. I still remember it word for word. Kathy, you have asked me to apologize for actions that were yours, and then have the audacity to say that you're better than me. But what's funny, Kathy, is that the son you raised turned out to be a lunatic murderer. I will always be better than you. And I posted a link to the old news article. I did not stick around to watch everything go down as I was sick of the drama. I removed myself from the group and went about my day. The aftermath: I received a phone call from a close friend in the evening and I learned what had happened. After I posted the link to the article about Kathy's son, the comment section absolutely blew up. Kathy and her cronies posted several comments where the group administrator was tagged, demanding that my comment be deleted. My friend said that there were several posts like this and they started to sound pretty desperate near the end. The lazy administrator, of course, was slow to respond. Kathy even said something about driving to the administrator's house since she was not returning her phone calls. After a couple of hours, the whole swap and sell group was deleted, but the damage was done. As for what happened to Kathy, I never had the chance to find out as she deleted her Facebook. I saw her in the grocery store a few weeks later, but she just flipped me off and walked the other way. My friends and I found a new swap and sell group. It gets bigger every day, but Kathy is not a part of it. And wow guys, I gotta say, that was a real roller coaster of emotions, and I really didn't expect this when the story started with it being about a Facebook swap and sell group. However, then again, stories about narcissists, at least for me, are always fascinating, and Kathy especially was a textbook example for narcissists. In addition, I'm curious, have you ever dealt with any narcissists in your own real life? If you wish, please feel free to share your story in the comments or on r/ripe stories on Reddit. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.